Good evening and good morning, ethics students. This is our class for Wednesday, January the 28th, 2026. As you know, the original schedule, we were going to have a review on Monday and a test on Wednesday. So Monday's gone, and now we're still online as of today, Wednesday, January 28th. What I'm going to do now is review some items with you for the test. The plan, the hope, is that we can therefore have the test on Friday. It remains up in the air, obviously, whether or not we will be back in person on Friday. Okay, now I'm going to run through some things. You should pay close attention to what I'm going to review with you. And you know that when you hear words like pay close attention, those are code words for something, right? Okay. If you have further questions about the test from the review sheet, send them to me in an email. I'll do my very best. I think I can get questions answered. Now, you can't ask 100 questions, but if there's one or two or three that you thought should have been covered that weren't, well then let me know. Okay. Here are some items. Oh, and if you did not get a copy of the full review sheet, let me know. Send me an email back and I'll get that back to you. I'm also going to send in a separate email so that you have this and so you know the preview for the test, which will tell you exactly how many, what kinds of questions, how much they'll be worth, and there will be some essay questions on there that will have to be answered in class when you take the test. Whenever we have the test, it will be in class. We will not do an online test. That just doesn't work. So it will be in class. We hope on Friday. So make some notes. Do you remember the 3 areas of ethical study? Do you remember the 3 kinds of truth? Do you remember and can you name the 2 main traditions that we are studying this semester? What, according to Hume, are the 2 kinds of knowledge? What are the 2 kinds of decisions that we talked about in class? Can you name the tripartite, threefold, division of the human being? Can you indicate which theory would say that the structure of reality is knowable? Can there ever be a conflict between the ethical and the legal? And how would you explain that? What about the possibility of happiness just being a psychological state? Is that possible? Do you think that ethics, as we're studying it, has a basis in ontology? Ontology. If you don't remember what that is, you refer to your notes or you can look it up. What about the question that one of the philosophers proposed regarding the connection between good and pleasure? Should we identify good with pleasure? One of the philosophers said something like this, that it's better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. Do you remember that? You think you could say anything about it? What would it mean to say that a being of higher faculties requires more to make him happy? What about phrases like, I approve of this, meaning I like this? How does that work? And then what about the connection between the reason and the emotions? Should reason rule the emotions, or should reason be the slave of the emotions? The emotions are sometimes referred to as passions. What about the question which we went over in class when we were discussing conscience? What about the puzzle about whether or not we should follow an invincibly erroneous conscience? What does it mean for a conscience to be invincibly erroneous? Conscience, remember, is the relationship between the intellect and the will, between our knowledge and the will. So if our knowledge is incomplete, what does it mean to say it's vincible versus it's invincible? Two kinds of ignorance. Can our actions be reasonable? Can they be unreasonable? Can our desires be reasoned or unreasoned? What would that mean? And how could that be explained? Is it possible that moral principles only describe social conventions? This was an important point in the distinction between the two traditions that we're studying. Can you explain the difference between truth and opinion? Can you explain what an opinion actually is? Why would we refer to emotivism as a non-cognitivist theory? What does non-cognitivism mean, and why would emotivism be an example of non-cognitivism? Is it the case that both emotivism and classical realism assert that there is a relationship between desire and the true good? If they both do assert such a relationship, how does each explain that relationship? How does emotivism explain the relationship between desire and the true good, and how does classical realism describe that relationship? How would you explain to someone the difference between a real good and an apparent good? Do you remember, and can you enumerate and explain the 3 steps in rationalization? It's on a certain page in the book, at the bottom of a page, but I can't remember it right offhand, and I don't have the book close enough to tell you. But you can look it up. Rationalization. You should remember already, without studying for the test, what are the 2 rules of conscience? They're kind of common sense, but what are those 2 rules explicitly? Can you state them explicitly? When you think about David Hume, what motivates ethical conduct for David Hume? What's the role of reason for Hume? What is the best way to explain the phrase, everything is relative? And finally, because the battery on my phone's about to run out, what is the theory of determinism and why is it self-defeating? If you have any questions, let me know. You can always stop this video and go back and watch what questions I'm asking you. But I hope to see you on Friday.